The Blind Tony Story, Book 5, Chapter 1. I bonded pretty quickly with the other members of the rooming house, and we became just like family. But there are several events above all others that stand out in my mind that I want to share at this time. Although Felicia had a boyfriend, she still dated one of the members of the Grateful Dead, and he always gave her some very good drugs. Once he gave her some LSD, and she in turn gave some to us. Not street acid like purple haze, orange sunshine, or white lightning, which all have a high speed content, but pure lysergic acid diamethine number 25, just like Timothy Leary prescribed. We all took one drop on a sugar cube, and then we went to a nude beach. I had never been to a nude beach before, and I was somewhat apprehensive, but all my fears were unfounded. We laid on the grass on the beach, drinking wine, smoking weed, just enjoying nature. I had to pee, so I walked away from the group and I found a spot in the grass that had this big log on it. And I started to pee on this log when all of a sudden thousands of bees started rising up from out of it into the sky. It was like a slow motion cartoon. There were so many of them that the sky turned dark. I took off running for the water, tripping over my feet, tripping off the acid, and peeing all over myself. I was completely naked. And I jumped in the water. I got stung all over. But it really was quite funny when I look back on it. Another memorable event that occurred was when we were tripping off peyote buttons. Peyote was also a very strong hallucinogen, and Native Americans have used it in their spiritual rituals for many years. It comes from the cactus plant, but there are hairs on it that contain a poison, strychnine, which must be cut away before you use it. Now, Aaron had turned me on to something before, but they were frozen, freeze dried. But these were fresh, so fresh, in fact, that when you bit into them, a stream of green juice would shoot into your mouth. However, this green juice was so foul that it was considered an emetic and you would instantly throw up. So in order to keep it down, we used to boil it into a tea in a big pot on the stove. And then we would drink it with lots of honey. That pot would sit on the stove until all the tea was gone. And that usually took over a week. And every time we entered the kitchen, we would drink a cup. And after several days of this, you were definitely in trip status. One day, after several days of drinking this tea, we went to Mount Tamalpais, which is right across the Golden Gate Bridge, close to Sausalito. And it had a beautiful view of the city, the bridge, the water, the sun, and yourself. Felicia's dog Jessie stumbled onto a rattlesnake's nest and got bit on both of his hind legs. We were all tripping, but we managed to get Jessie to a vet, and she survived. But she was sick for a long time, and she was never the same again. The hairs on her back legs never grew back. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, and pretty soon I was down to my last $100. So I locked it away from myself in a suitcase in my room. San Francisco was quite expensive, and I still had been unable to find a job. We used to play Scrabble every day around dinner time in the common living room area. However, on this particular day, I didn't want to play, and I stayed in my room. Now, Dolores came upstairs and asked me what was wrong. I told her that I had problems, and she asked me if it was money. And I said, yeah. And then she said, how much? And I said, if I had a few grand, I'd be all right. And then she said, if I give you $3,000, when will you give it back? And I said, in a couple weeks. And that was it. I thought she was playing, but the next morning she gave me $3,100 bills. I kissed her, I hugged her, and I made love to her all night long. And then I explained to her my plan of trying to buy some cheap pounds of weed and then taking them to the East Coast to sell. She told me that she could help me with that too. She said her ex-boyfriend was a drug smuggler. And later that day, she gave me a phone number to call. Now this phone, it was just a regular phone number. At least that's what it seemed like to me. And so I called it. And it was an answering machine that simply said, place your order. Someone will get back to you. Leave a number. I said I was looking for 25 pounds of mid-grade commercial weed for about $100 a pound. And then I left my number. That evening, I received a call to come to an address at a certain time in the Mission District. I went, and there was this huge warehouse, like a hangar, and it was mainly empty, but there were pockets of activity in every corner. I was ushered to a corner that had 3 or 4 bales of marijuana stacked on top of each other. There were 3 different piles. I was told that any of those 3 types of weed were available for $100 a pound if I bought at least 25 of them. I was allowed to sample freely from each pile, and eventually I made a choice. And at that point, a young white guy stepped out from behind an airplane that was parked behind the bales of marijuana. And he extended his hand. He was very well dressed and had 2 matching shoulder holsters on. One contained a pearl-handled pistol, and the other contained a pearl-handled knife. He told me that I had made an excellent choice. And then he pulled a plastic baggie out of his pocket and asked me if I wanted to do a line. I said, yeah. And then he extracted that pearl-handled knife and stuck it in the baggie and took about 3 grams and put it on the table. He cut out 2 lines, and then he took a gold straw out of his vest pocket, sucked up 1 line, and then handed me the straw. And I sucked up the other one. Instantly, I knew that this was something exquisite. I told him that I wanted to buy some of that too. But he said that was his personal, it wasn't for sale. However, he did stick the knife back in the baggie once more and took out a few more grams, which he said I could keep. I took out my money to pay him, but he said there was no need because if I had that phone number, then I had to be okay because that phone number was changed every day. He said that I would be called tomorrow and told where and when to take delivery and to bring the money at that time. So I went back to Dolores and she and I partied all night long. And in the morning, I received a call and was told to go to a motel room in the Fillmore district. It was like something out of a Scarface movie. And if things were then the way they are today, I would have never gone there unarmed, alone, and carrying that much money. But they weren't, so I did, and everything went well. 2 hours later, I was back partying with Dolores again. I made reservations on a Trailway bus to Atlantic City for the next day. Now, Trailways had a special deal going on at that time, anywhere in the continental United States for $59. Wow. So even though it took 4 days to get there, it cost less than $60. And that was great. On top of that, Dolores gave me another surprise. She worked in a dentist's office and they used pharmaceutical grade cocaine for root canal surgery. And that was manufactured by the Merck's pharmaceutical company and was the only officially sanctioned pharmaceutical cocaine manufactured in the United States. It came in 1 ounce bottles which contained 28 grams, but only 2 or 3 grams were used during the surgery. And the rest had to be thrown away. Once that seal is broke on that bottle, it can't be reused. Dolores brought me a leftover bottle which still had over 20 grams of cocaine left in it. And 1 gram of pharmaceutical looks like about 3 grams of regular cocaine because it is so light and fluffy. Things were very, very good. I left the next day for the East Coast, and I reached there without incident, although the customs people did board the bus before we left California to ask if anyone had any vegetation from Mexico that they wanted to declare. The weed was in 2 locked suitcases underneath the bus, all in kilo bricks. The cocaine was in my carry-on case. Aaron picked me up in Philadelphia, and we drove from there to Atlantic City. I stayed at North Road's house, and I sold those pounds for $300 to $800 per pound. Life was good. Very, very good. In fact, very, very, very good. I got back to Dolores in less than 2 weeks, and I gave her back her $3,000 plus a pound of weed and another extra $100 plus some cocaine. We partied again. And she was especially happy because all her friends had turned against her and told her that she was crazy to give a man she barely knew $3,000. They had all assured her that I wouldn't be back and that she would never see me or her money again. Well, surprise, 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 like Grandma Powell used to say. I always try to keep my word, and I did. Life was very, very good.